Welcome, everyone, to the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, presented by RP Funding. 252 days ago, Scott Dixon went to victory lane. In the season finale, Alex Palou wrapped up the championship a week early, and Marcus Armstrong grabbed Rookie of the Year honors. A dominant season for Ganassi Racing. But again, the slate is wiped clean, and everyone starts anew on the beautiful streets of St. Petersburg, Florida. Welcome, everyone. This is Mark Janes. Happy to be joined by our driver analyst, Davey Hamilton. And, Davey, the history here dates back to 2003. There was no race in 2004, but since 2005, this place has developed a long and storied history.
It sure has, and we're happy to be back. I mean, what a beautiful day. Exciting to see the cars, the drivers, all the new combinations in these cars, 27 of them, a full field here at St. Petersburg. So all I expect is going to be super competitive, as it always is. I know the Sebring test, I looked at the times there. Mark, unbelievable how close all these cars and teams were. So it's going to be an exciting year, and happy to be part of it to kick it off here at St. Petersburg.
And I think, Davey, what's interesting to note is I believe the only team on the grid that rolls off this weekend totally intact with no additions, subtractions, or changes might be Team Penske.
Yeah, I think that is right. I never really put that to thought, but you're right. Everybody else has had some changes. They'll move around, especially we talked about it earlier in the next broadcast is Del Coyne. He didn't have drivers till a few days ago. I really didn't know who was going to be in those race cars. He kind of announced what he's going to do. It's going to be exciting for him to try to move different drivers around. I think Siegel's got an opportunity out of Indy NXT to drive some cars. But, yeah, I tell you what, Andretti has made a few changes. But you're right, Penske's the only one that's kept it the same.
As we mentioned, Davey referenced it, a beautiful day. In other words, just another day in the Sunshine State of Florida. Let's get the specifics on that by welcoming in Michael Young.
Well, good afternoon, Mark Janes. Yes, it is a beautiful day, as it always is, as our season kickoff gets underway. First practice session for the NTT INDYCAR Series. Temperatures climbed a couple of degrees since the Indy NXT by Firestone Series took to this 1.8-mile circuit. Now 84 ambient, 118 is the current track temperature, but it'll be interesting as we get all of these cars from the NTT INDYCAR Series out on the track with the new places, the new faces, and all of the changes that have been made to these different teams in 2024. As you were talking about, Team Penske, the only one that stayed intact. But with these changes will come, I think, big results and some exciting racing action. Looking forward to this first practice session of 2024.
And again, this session might be a minute or two late off the grid because the Indy NXT session was a little late in getting going, and there were some issues there with some cars in the runoff. Typical feeling out process the first time you're on the course. But Davey, for the last couple of years, in these practice sessions, we have not seen a lot of activity off the top, except for the teams that were given an extra set of tires because they had a rookie driver. Well, some changes have been made, and basically the drivers went to the NTT IndyCar Series and said, "Hey, let's try something." So this 27-car field, once the clock starts, and the green flag flies, they'll be able to run as much as they want the first 20 minutes of the session, and then they'll be divided by alternating pit boxes, I should say, for the rest of the session, with Group 1 getting the track for 10 minutes before pitting. They'll hand it off to Group 2 for the next 10 minutes and so on until that checkered flag waves. What do you think of that format?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's the same for everybody. We do know that. It's just a little different being if you're in that second group, you got to just hang out in your car. I don't know if it's worth getting out, and more likely they'll get out and relax and go over things. And then it could be an advantage for that second group because they could go shake down in the first and really talk about what they want to change and what they want to do. So we'll find out. I mean, it's something new. I think it gives some opportunity for these. It means you have 27 cars. Maybe just going to give more track time. Less cars on the racetrack for practice may not be a bad thing.
Well, I think that's the issue, Davey, as much as anything, for us calling it, and certainly for those fans listening and watching at home and those that, pile into the grandstands on these days. I mean, there have been times when you've sat through the first, 20, 25 minutes of a practice session the past couple of years with maybe only one or two cars on the racetrack, and I think this might alleviate that issue.
Yeah, that's right, because of, tire allotments and things like that go behind the scenes that You only get so many tires for a weekend, and you want to make sure the track is as good as it could possibly get. Now, we do know this. The longer it goes, back to the second group, I expect to see times quicker in the second group than the first, especially early on, just because the more rubber gets laid down, the quicker these cars are going to get, and, the faster they're going to get because track conditions will improve.
It is the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, and Michael has someone who's very closely associated with Firestone, huh, Michael?
It's indeed the race engineer for Firestone, chief engineer, Kara Kristalik, at tire development and management. You do a little bit of everything, and always great to see you back here at St. Petersburg in this wonderful facility. Firestone, again, the title sponsor. It's just a great match made in racing heaven, if you will, that you guys and the Green Sabri folks have put this wonderful event together. Welcome back to St. Petersburg.
It is great to be here, Michael. We love St. Pete. We love the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Pete. The fans here are phenomenal. The city is phenomenal. We love it.
We were just talking a little bit about up and down pit lane, the amount of changes that have happened within each and every team. About Firestone, more on track than anything else. Any changes that we can look for in 2024?
Yeah, so for this year, one of the things that we focused on is a little bit more durable compounds. We could have ended up here with the hybrid, so we're having a little bit more durable tires for that. The tires were designed to actually work without the hybrid as well, so we'll have some nice, consistent tires over stint.
So confirming that then, the hybrid engine we're expecting, or hopefully, fingers crossed, have it by mid-Ohio. So the tires we're seeing now are purpose-made for the hybrid engine when we do get that implemented into the series?
Yeah, we went into our design philosophy for the 2024 season, making a tire that would work with both. Of course, we biased a little bit towards the additional loads of the hybrid, but we have a great mix of this.
So we talk about the hybrid and the additional weight that it will add to the car. There's obviously gains with energy and the things that can happen inside the race car. But for a tire with a lighter race car that we'll have in the first half of the season and moving into the second half with the hybrid, will the engine wear, or should say the tire wear, change throughout in the way the tire performs?
Yeah, we're going to see some differences. Obviously, with a lighter car, we're going to have some faster speeds, and then you add the load back and we'll have some challenges there. But the tire is going to be designed to be able to handle both of them, so we'll see great performance from our Firestone Firehawk tires.
We talked a little bit last year about how under the gun you were, Road America, and how many tires that Firestone had to make to bring, and the compounds. You had a little time to prepare for this season, but what went into 2024 and how much technology and information did you put into these tires and its development?
We've pulled from our previous designs, and then we've also done a lot of work with INDYCAR and the race teams. There was a lot of hybrid testing on the off-season, so we've tested with these tires. They also had a test at Sebring with this actual compound, so the teams have some data to back up what they're going to expect to see here.
Very special weekend as far as Firestone goes, as far as a donation goes. Obviously, we lost a great racer in Gilles de Ferran, and Firestone helping to make his memory a more memorable one as you guys donate some money this weekend.
Yeah, it was very important to honor his memory. He's done so much for the INDYCAR series and for Firestone, and it was a wonderful thing that we were able to do.
I think the money goes to a great cause. It was $10,000, perhaps more, but it's just fantastic that you guys were able to do that as we honor the memory of the late, great Gilles de Ferran. Well, we wish you all the best as we wait for these cars to get out. Obviously, there was a lot of Indy Next by Firestone cars. We had a lot of those, so we have to cycle those all out so we can get the NTT IndyCar Series out. But as always, so great to see you and looking forward to a fantastic 2024.
Excellent. Thanks for chatting, Michael.
And always a pleasure to visit with her. Kara Kristalik, of course, the race engineer, the chief director for Firestone Tire and Development here at not only St. Petersburg, all the races in the entire 2024 season for NTT IndyCar Series.
We are certainly grateful for the access and the insight, and no question, Davey, Firestone continues to lead the way, and each and every year, I mean, they don't rest on their laurels. They're always looking for ways to improve their product. It's hard to improve on perfection, but Firestone finds a way to do that each and every season.
They sure do, Mark. And, one thing that she talked about is, how they're already getting ahead of the hybrid situation. I know that was a bit of a delay for IndyCar, not being able to have it in this first race. So, as Michael said, probably mid-Ohio before it becomes available. But already, working on how different that's going to be, what the weight difference of the cars. I mean, the traction difference. They're already working on a tire for that motor, so they're way ahead of the game.
Now, Davey, you talk about that as the green flag finally flies, and as we said, 252 days. It's been a long wait, and we've had some testing, most assuredly. Davey already referenced Sebring, but happy to see cars out on the racetrack. And Davey, we'll talk more about that hybrid and its development. Been very busy with that, had some successful tests recently, but let's talk about some changes to this course. Noticeable bumps in the middle of turn 3. Those are gone thanks to the city laying down 125 feet of repave. Tire barrier at the end of 4 has been shortened 12 feet, Davey. It's been reduced in depth by 3 rows of tires. Now you can go more easily side by side through there. And the banners in their previous incarnation are gone. They're now made of a conveyor belt type material that won't get wadded up on the cars, and that's going to help if a car gets into the tire barrier. That's going to help the AMR IndyCar safety crew be able to get them out of the barriers a lot quicker.
Yeah, absolutely, all good improvements. Although we've seen that banner, or the tire cover, we want to call it. It's like a big piece of rubber goes on that side. In Indy NXT, we've seen a car go underneath of it. Still kind of stuck the car in there. So maybe a little bit of work to do on that, but still much easier than getting it out of the tires themselves. So that's an improvement. I was able to go around there yesterday with a 2-seater Mark. Turn 3, what a big improvement there as well. It's just smooth going through there. Obviously, the traction is down right now. There's not a lot of grip there because it's new asphalt. So it's going to take a little bit to get it rubbered up, get some stick in there. It's going to be a little slicker early on, but the bumps are gone. It seems like the curbing, when you say turn 4, they moved the tires and made it wider through there. I actually thought maybe it was a curbing change a little bit, so I'm glad you updated me that it was actually the tire barrier, because it's wider through there for sure, a little more room for air. And then going into turn 10, it seems like that curbing is just a little bit different as well. Seemed to open up just a little bit better. You don't want to hit that curb with your left side, though, because it's going to shoot you that outside wall, which we've seen happen in the past. So still 3 really key areas of this racetrack when it comes to passing. None better than turn 1, though, as far as the passing zone is concerned.
Davey, we talked about the development of the hybrid. In preparation of that, there are some compounds, some areas of the car in preparation for that are now lighter, including the aero screen. And so there's an outside chance with some weight being dropped from these cars going into this weekend, we might see a track record full. So we'll see if that track record indeed falls. And Nick Yeoman, you're here. You can weigh in on that.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, with the lighter race cars, Mark, and the tire compound, and obviously the smoothing out portions of the racetrack, there's no doubt that we're going to see some impressive speeds. And then, as you mentioned, as we kind of ease into the hybrid development, we're going to see some incredibly fast speeds. And not just this weekend, Mark, but throughout the season. I mean, some of the racetracks we go to have seen some repaves as well. I know Mid-Ohio got some touch-up. Road America's had some work. So speed is the name of the game in the NTT IndyCar Series, and I expect to see everywhere we go threatening track records.
And about that hybrid testing, Nick, recently at Homestead Miami Speedway, 2 tests there, in fact. 15 drivers participated, 2,600 laps turned, over 5,800 miles. In total testing since August of 2023, when it was first unveiled, they've had 15 drivers take part, 7 different racetracks: Barber, Homestead, the IMS Road Course, Milwaukee, IMS, Sebring, Worldwide Technology Raceway, over 21,000 miles in testing.
And I think the coolest thing, Mark, is we have heard more and more from the reports from those sessions and those test sessions that some of the gremlins being worked out, and a lot of these sessions here in the last handful of weeks, Mark, that have taken place have been relatively clean in terms of getting those hybrid units up to speed. So it's a very, very good sign.
Talked to a couple of crew chiefs during the offseason and team principals, and honestly, they said the very first test they were a little worried.
Sure.
But this most recent test, they walked away from it feeling like that it's pretty close to being ready now.
Here's how I know that they've gone from being less worried about the confidence of the hybrid and more. Now they're worried about from a competitive standpoint know, who's getting to test it. So, yeah, they're no longer worried about these things holding up. And we'll see. It's going to be kind of, a work in progress of whether this thing's going to be debuted mid-season. That's the plan for right now. But obviously it's a big undertaking, and it's going to be a storyline we're going to follow, Mark, throughout the coming months.
I don't know if we'll see much use of it. It's designed for a visibility thing, but a couple of improvements made to the car now, Nick, is LEDs have been added to the rear wing end plates for better visibility. It's normally just that flashing light on the rear attenuator, and they've redesigned some of the brake rotors to help cool them off a little bit, because there's times on these road and street circuits where we really see those things glowing.
Yeah, there's no doubt. The last thing you want is to have brake issues, so that is always a point of contention and a point to focus on. And then you mentioned the LED lights. I think those mainly put in place, Mark, for some of the times when we want to go racing in inclement weather. That's always a concern. The spray that you get off of these Indy cars, you get it off of any type of motor vehicle that you're following behind, but to have a little more of an awareness to seeing cars in front of you, I think that's a really nice improvement by Indy.
Davey, the interesting thing about this hybrid development is I think the camaraderie that exists throughout the series, especially the cooperation that exists in its development between Honda and Chevy. I mean, given the fact that they slug it out each and every year for the Manufacturers' Championship, the ultimate goal is to put together a competitive package, and they are working along with the NTT IndyCar Series toward that goal.
Yeah, you know for a fact that they want to win the championship as manufacturers, but getting this up and going, their technology has gone back and forth, and I know it came a little short, and it's still disappointing, obviously, for everybody. It wasn't intended to be that way, that they're not in the cars as of today for this first race, but they did all they could do, and I know that there's a behind-the-scenes, Mark, there's a lot of people doing a lot of work, and I'm anxious to see how it works and how different it makes these cars to drive, so it's going to be something new for all of us.
And as we mentioned, a different format. But this first 20 minutes or so is an all-skate. And teams went out, made that install lap, and came in. And we can see that they're working on cars up and down pit road as we speak, as 13 minutes remain in this initial 20-minute session. You've already heard from Michael Young on pit road. Well, earlier today, Ryan Marine sat down, put pen to paper, and laid out for us the massive number of changes, faces, different places as we get ready for this season. Here's Ryan Marine.
As the 2024 season begins, no fewer than 12 full-time cars feature new drivers or are entirely new entries to the NTT IndyCar Series. Chip Ganassi Racing has expanded to 5 cars, welcoming in rookies Kiffin Simpson and Linus Lundqvist, while 2023 Rookie of the Year Marcus Armstrong shifts to a full-time schedule for the first time. Andretti Global has reduced from 4 to 3 season-long cars, but has added 2022 Indy 500 winner Marcus Ericsson to the fold, alongside Colton Herta and Kyle Kirkwood. Outgoing Andretti driver Romain Grosjean has found a new home with Juncos Hollinger Racing, taking over the seat Callum Ilott has held for the past 2+ seasons. Over at Aero McLaren, David Malukas has been signed to replace Felix Rosenqvist, but the Chicago native will need to wait until at least Long Beach to make his race debut in Papaya due to a wrist injury suffered in the offseason. In his place, ex-Juncos driver Ilott will pilot the number 6 Chevrolet. The aforementioned Rosenqvist has shifted over to Meyer Shank Racing for 2024, alongside IMSA champion Tom Blomqvist, who deputized for the injured Simon Pagenaud at multiple races last season. At Ed Carpenter Racing, reigning Indy NXT champion Christian Rasmussen will contest the road and street courses in a car he is set to share with the team owner, and will attempt to qualify a 3rd entry for the Indy 500 in May. Elsewhere, Rahal Letterman Lanigan has signed Petro Fittipaldi, grandson of 2-time Indy 500 winner Emerson, to drive its number 30 Honda. It marks Pietro's return to IndyCar competition for the first time since the 2021 Indy 500. Stingray Robb is back for a 2nd season, this time with AJ Foyt Racing, alongside incumbent Santino Ferrucci, while his former team, Dale Coyne Racing, has hired a combination of drivers, including veteran Jack Harvey and sports car ace Colin Brown, who will be racing this weekend, as well as current Indy NXT star Nolan Siegel. That trio and possibly others are set to share DCR's pair of Honda entries across the 2024 season.
Were you taking notes on all of that, Davey Hamilton? Did you get all of that?
Well, I've heard all of it. I know it all pretty much, but it was good to have it laid out that way. I know a lot of changes. We kept track of them. I think Coyne was the one that we were, kind of surprised about. It just took so long and not knowing exactly which direction he was going. Good to see Jack Harvey. We've seen him, kind of getting bounced around a little bit. He made a choice not to stay with Meyer Shank, which kind of started that team and got him going, which was a surprise when he left. And then went over to Ray Hall Letterman, but just didn't work out. So finds himself in a full-time seat, it looks like, which is good for him. And then that second car, I think that Del Coyne's given some new guys some opportunities this year. Always healthy. We've seen Del do that again, time and time again, I should say. A lot of times when he finds the good ones, and one of the big teams snag him. So we'll see how that works out for Del Coyne this year.
Lots of good people up and down pit road. They don't come much better than Barry Wanser and Michael Young. We're happy to welcome him back to the streets of St. Petersburg.
Yeah, we're getting ready to talk to Barry. He's getting ready to send his driver, Alex Palou, out. So if I have a moment to talk to Barry, they're getting ready to send him. So maybe we revisit with Barry here momentarily. But in case the fans are unaware of the story, Barry just finished a pretty intense battle with cancer. And this is the first time he's been back at the racetrack since he began that therapy about the midway point, a little past that last year in 2023. So great to have him back. As soon as we get an opportunity to say hello to Barry, we will certainly welcome him back with open arms.
9 minutes remaining in this initial 20-minute session. Again, every other pit box goes for 10 minutes after that as they rotate. So they'll get time to go out, shake it down for 10 minutes, come in, work on it, and then go back out after that second group completes their 10-minute session. To Dick Yeoman, some interesting names turning laps early on. A couple of guys we'll have our eye on, including an outstanding crop of rookies and one that's a familiar name to motorsports fans everywhere who's not a newcomer. I'll tell you what, let's check on that in a minute. Nick Yeoman, let's go back to Michael Young.
Yeah, with Barry Wanser. And Barry, I'd say just thrilled to have you back to the racetrack. And for the fans that don't know, I remember it was past the midway point around Road America, if I remember, just past that. You left the track and we found out that you weren't well, but we didn't know to the extent. But you have had a long road to haul, my friend, and you look fantastic. Welcome back. Could you tell the fans what you've been through these last 6-8 months?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with neck cancer in August, so right after the Gateway race, I had my first surgery to remove a tumor in the back of my tongue and a neck dissection to remove some lymph nodes. 2 weeks later, I had a follow-up surgery on the tongue, and then my right side removed some more lymph nodes from my neck. At that point, it was just recovering. It's like anybody that goes through, whether it's surgery and cancer recovery, it's not easy, right? So, but I got through it and had a good support network. Certainly, amazing wife who became my nurse, and not Nurse Ratched either. She was awesome, for those that remember the old movie. But yeah, it's just it's been humbling. Certainly, the racing community reached out and provided me a lot of support and stuff, and just allowed me to recover, and it really helped. And that was 6 months ago, and now I'm back, and I feel great. I didn't realize how bad I felt, right, until I was diagnosed. But I'm doing great now, and it's good to be back. Looking forward to a great season.
It's great to have you back as well with your championship-winning driver, Alex Palou. Last night had an opportunity to screen the new movie, The Lionheart, about the life and times of Susie, Dan Weldon, and the boys, Oliver and Sebastian. Your thoughts on that movie?
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. It's obviously well done. I'm sure for many of us that were close with Dan.
Looking at timing and scoring right now. Alex Palou with him on the radio.
Sorry, obviously many of us were great friends with Dan. He obviously raced here for a few years. He raced the 10 cars, so we had the pleasure of winning races with Dan. And just obviously everything that Susie's done with the boys, and the boys are carrying on in Dan's footsteps. It's great to see, and it's hard as well, but it's great to see. And again, the movie captures a lot of that and a lot of Dan and the family, and it's just awesome. So,
Quickie, let's talk why we're here. This 10 car winning another championship. The outlook for this year, the new DHL sponsorship, the car looks fantastic, and I think Alex looks and talks more confidently than I think I've ever seen him before.
Yeah, sure. I mean, he's obviously very confident after winning a second championship. There's no greater confidence than that. We still have some boxes to check. Everything's about, doing the best we can at these races, building momentum for Indy. And certainly nothing would be better than capturing the Indianapolis 500. That's obviously one of the team goals, and then carry on to win the championship. So, we have, a lot of competition. The pit lane is stacked with talent, so it's going to be difficult, but we're up for the challenge.
First pit stall is always a great way to start the season. Best of luck this weekend in the season.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
That's Barry Wanser. He's the race strategist for Alex Palou, of course, our NTT IndyCar Series champion 2 times, now here and most recently in 2023.
And he and Mike Hull provide us tremendous access and insight all throughout the course of the season. Thrilled to death to hear things have gone well for him in the offseason, and super to see him back at the racetrack, no doubt about it. Christian Lundgaard goes to P1 early on in the session. Marcus Ericsson was the first to get to the top of timing and scoring, as Davey, 25 of the 27 cars now have turned laps in this 20-minute session.
Yeah, get ready to cut off. 5 minutes left, basically, Mark, for this all skate. Then it's going to go into a couple rounds. But how impressive! You got a Rahal car first. You got an Andretti car second. Well, now you got a Ganassi car second, Andretti third, a Penske fourth, a Carpenter fifth. So right now, the top 5 cars are with 5 different teams. That again shows how tight this field is, and the competition level is going to be strong this year.
And Award goes to P1. Then Lundgaard. Now Colton Herta goes to P1. So Davey, business picking up here over the last 5 minutes as this thing continues to turn over.
Yeah, no surprise. We know Colton. He's hungry as McLaughlin with that Penske car. He goes to P1. So Rosenquist now, he's up there. So it's gonna keep getting mixed up. It's gonna change as we go. Track's gonna get better and better. These guys are gonna get used to their cars, knowing the limits of them, and keep laying these laps down. Now, our fastest rookie right now is going to be Rasmussen in that 20 car of Ed Carpenter Racing at 12th right now. So we'll keep a track of the rookies. You got Simpson, Braun is another one. There's a rookie, 3 rookies in this field, actually 4, because you got Lundqvist and Rasmussen both. Yeah.
So Davey, going back to the comments of Michael Young with Barry Wanser, a lot of people were really surprised to hear that Chip would expand that operation to 5 cars, and as we have seen in the past, sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I think Chip, I talked to him briefly yesterday. I haven't talked to Chip for a while. I was able to talk to him at the Dan Weldon showing yesterday, which was great, by the way, last night, and being able to watch that movie, and as Barry said, was, a great tribute to Dan and Susie and the kids. But I didn't get a good chance, but that's one of my conversations is, wow, what drove you to do the 5 cars? And I think it was a situation where there was some good opportunity with the sponsors that he has, with the drivers that became available, and he's going to go for it. As we know, it's not an easy task, as we've seen Andretti, they're normally the ones with 5. They cut back down to 4 just to make sure, the competition level stays there.
Nick Yeoman, the driver that has recently gone to P1, is one of those that I'm most interested in seeing how this season goes for him. Romain Grosjean in that 77 car for Hukos Hollinger. I mean, let's go back 1 year ago. Ifs and buts, I know. But the start that he got off to and the promise that Romain Grosjean showed early on, I mean, let's face it, he could have very easily, 4 races into the season, been the points leader, and his fate with this race team, Andretti Global, might have been much different.
All 27 of these drivers, Mark, were salivating to kick off this season, but I think some are maybe a little hungrier than others, and I think Romain Grosjean has a lot to prove this season. As you mentioned, came so close on so many occasions of winning that first IndyCar race for Andretti Global a year ago, but so oftentimes it was mistakes, and where he ended up with a torn-up race car. Of course, the most memorable one was right here on the streets of St. Pete a year ago, where he and Scott McLaughlin racing through a pit sequence. They go side by side into turn 4, and the race ends for both of them, at least the bid to win. And then for Grosjean in that second half of the season, Mark, the wheels fell off. I mean, it was incidents week in, week out. He loses the ride with Andretti Global, moves over to Hukos Hollinger, where we know how hungry that team is to kind of move up in the pecking order of this sport. And it is awful impressive so far to see that Romain jumps behind the wheel of another car for a different team and immediately goes to P1. I think he's hungry and has a lot to prove.
Team among those with a technical alliance, too, that they think's going to benefit them this year.
Yeah, they're partnered up with the Arrow McLaren bunch, who comes ready to bear as well. So that should benefit Romain. It should benefit Augustine Canapino, who's another one, Mark, that showed some signs being very competent a year ago. So for Juncos Hollinger, again, so important to, get aligned with some of these power teams and find a way to move up the pecking order. And so far, pretty impressive. Grosjean just got bumped by Felix Rosenqvist, who's been fast in this practice session, but Grosjean looking quite strong in car 77.
Earlier today, Michael Young caught up with the driver of the 77 car for Juncos Hollinger Racing.
Set to kick off our 2024 season. Romain Grosjean, new colors this year and moving to a new team, new livery. Certainly this venue bid a little bit last year. It certainly had a car to win in, and now with the new team this year, so many new variables. How do you approach a new season and a smaller team? Everything really has changed. Your thoughts on this new season?
Yeah, a lot of change, and but the excitement and the adrenaline of coming here and restarting a season is always the same. So I think as long as I have that desire to do well and to compete, I will be happy, an happy race car driver.
The difficulties in changing to a new team. How welcoming has Ricardo Juncos been? How easy has the transition been with the new team?
The team has been outstanding and amazing to welcome me. I think they're very open about where they are, where we are, and where we want to go. I know, we have a lot of work ahead of us, but I think we're all ready to get our sleeves up and work hard.
I know you guys were testing the hybrid engine in Sebring. There was a lot going in. You didn't test the hybrid, so you haven't had an opportunity to test it. It's going to be an interesting season from the fact that you're going to run these first couple of races without any hybrid, so the cars will be a little bit lighter. Then they'll change mid-season, but they will be different from what they were last year as well. Do you have any inkling of what it's going to be like going into the first sessions this weekend?
No, I think right now we're not too dissimilar to where we were last year in terms of cars, so that's okay. I think the hybrid is a big one, and there are teams that have a huge advantage over the others, but we'll just try to catch up as much as we can.
Well, we wish you all the best this weekend and all season long.
Thank you.
There he is, Romain Grosjean, driving with Juncos Hollinger Racing this year.
Thank you, Michael. That first 20-minute session has wrapped. Davey, your top 10, Rosenqvist, Power, Grosjean, Award, and below. Herta, Dixon, McLaughlin, VK, and Alexander Rossi, the top 10.
All solid runs, right, for getting going. And I do like the format so far. We're talking about it off air just briefly. It does seem like it keeps cars on racetrack, which I think is good. They're not just sitting around. So now it's going to be an all skate. I expect it. I'm sorry, two groups from a all skate, and I expect these two groups to be super busy the entire time.
Eilert was 11th, Ericsson 12th, 13th Armstrong, 14th Kirkwood, 15th Newgarden, 16th Lundgaard, 17th Lundqvist, 18th Rahal, Canapino 19th, Ferrucci 20th, Rasmussen 21st, Kiffin Simpson 22nd, Stingray Robb 23rd, Jack Harvey 24th, Fittipaldi 25th, and Braun 26th. Nick Yeoman, pretty impressive crop of rookies, as we always have in the NTT IndyCar Series.
Yeah, and many of those coming from the Indy NXT by Firestone series, including the last two champions of that series, getting an opportunity to run in the NTT IndyCar Series. It's a full season effort for Linus Lundqvist. What an opportunity to join Chip Ganassi and then Christian Rasmussen. Right now, he'll be sharing that car with Ed Carpenter, so he'll just be on the road and street circuits, but both of those drivers very, very talented. Joining Linus Lundqvist with Chip Ganassi Racing is Kiffin Simpson, who has spent the last couple years in the Indy NXT by Firestone Series as well. He was actually pretty strong in some of the preseason testing down in Sebring, so we'll see what Kiffin has, one of the younger drivers in the field. Of course, you guys mentioned it, Colin Brown, kind of an unconventional rookie. He spent so many years racing in NASCAR and winning championships in sports car racing. He gets the opportunity, at least for one race, to jump behind the wheel of a car for Dale Coyne Racing. Tom Blomqvist, another driver with a lot of sports car experience as well. Pietro Fittipaldi, good to see him back. He's got an Indy 500 start to his name, but not a ton of IndyCar starts. So a lot of young drivers that going to be trying to knock off some of these established veterans in the sport. Every year, though, Mark, there's always one or two that pop up and surprise, and we got a talented bunch. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Brown and Blomqvist are two of those that are rookie in name only. These are two very accomplished racers.
Yeah, I mean, they're both – I know Christian Brown's in his 30s. I think Tom Blomqvist is knocking on the door as well. So they've got a lot of laps under their belt. They are rookies in name only. It's going to be a learning experience for Christian Brown, though. I mean, he just got the opportunity to test for Dale Coyne for the first time about a week ago, so he is being thrown into the deep end of the pool, but very accomplished sports car driver and has a good teammate, at least for some of these races, Mark, to lean on if he does do more races in a Jack Harvey, who's got a lot of experience. I think we're all happy to see that Jack been given a lifeline and he let his career continue with Dale Coyne Racing. He'll be splitting that car with Nolan Siegel, who's another one of these rookies that we're going to see throughout the course of the year. He's got 4 races scheduled, including an attempt in the Indianapolis 500. He's one you can watch and hear on the IndyCar Radio Network, competing in Indy NXT by Firestone. So, yeah, a lot of young talent in some new seats, and it is part of the fabric that always makes coming to St. Pete very interesting.
Davey, the top 16 cars in the 61-second range, going all the way back to Lundgaard with a time of 101.980. So obviously very competitive, and as is often the case, especially when we go qualifying tomorrow, boy, just a tick here or there, the smallest mistake could cost you an opportunity to move on in that knockout qualifying format.
Yeah, that's what we've seen in the testing this year. The short amount of testing that they had, I should say. Man, they're just on top of each other. It was just remarkable. You gain a 10th, you may move up 3 or 4 spots. So you're right, Mark. It's Lundgaard at one point was P1 in this session. It ends up being Rosenquist. But Lundgaard, I expect him to be fast. We've seen the Rahal cars. I think they have a lot of hope this year of being contending to win again and finding himself in 17th, not where he wants to be. I'm sorry, in 16th, but at the end of the day, they're not there that far off the lead.
Rahal has made a ton of engineering changes, and Davey, I'm sure they want to put it in the rearview mirror to a certain extent. It's such a horrible memory, but let's face it. I mean, I think that caused them to do some introspection and make some changes after the disastrous month of May they had at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and they started making changes right away, and I think some of those changes started to pay dividends toward them for the second half of the season. So they had to be one of those teams that were really anxious to get this season underway to see how those changes were going to affect their performance this year.
Yeah, and I think in one of the practices, I'd seen Graham was in P2 or P3, so I seen some speed right there. They showed a lot of consistency, actually. You look at the lap times that they had. They were very consistent, so I think they're going into the season with a lot of confidence. Haven't been able to talk to Graham personally yet, haven't found him, but to just kind of give a feel of what they have going on right now. But I think, they know where they need to be, and like you said, when it's just it's a gut wrencher when you don't make the biggest race in the world, and that's the Indy 500. And I think once that happened, especially to Graham, his name's on that team along with his father, and something had to be changed.
Hard to believe it was way back in 2008 when Graham Rahal won here on the streets of St. Petersburg. Back to pit road, Michael Young.
Yeah, a couple of the Ganassi cars still sitting here on pit lane, watching Alex Palou make some adjustments to his car. So too the PNC Bank Honda of Scott Dixon. Scott McLaughlin just went back to this 1.8-mile course. They made an adjustment to that front wing, added a full round to that. So minor tweaks after that split opening practice session for each half of the field. And now everybody out there for a free skate. Should be interesting to see how everybody lays down. Some times are actually the second half now going out right now and getting their time in on the track. But it's interesting seeing these little tweaks and changes that they make to these cars, that these minor wing adjustments, and most definitely ride heights. And Davey can talk to that with some of the changes in this circuit. Ride height's always such a tough thing to try to figure out, and these cars tend to want to bottom out. When they do so, you lose entire handling of these cars, and we've seen already a lot of these teams adjusting the ride height to their machines.
Yeah, they're exactly right. As we see one car off the course right now, but Michael, you're right. Ride heights are so important. You want to get them as low as you possibly can without hitting around the hard bumps. It doesn't mind if they scrape every now and then, just so slightly, but you definitely don't want them to hit hard because it takes the wheels off the ground and it makes for a rough day. It looks like an Aero, and I can't tell which car that is, Mark. You may be able to see it better than I do.
Kiffin Simpson is in that runoff area, Nick Yeoman, and that's a place where you and I have spent a lot of time at this racetrack over the years, right into turn 9, right into turn 10.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's one of the more picturesque spots on the racetrack. Not where Kiffin Simpson has stopped his car. That's actually one of the worst spots you can put it in between some tire barriers, but a grandstand that is filling up with people and will be packed come race day on Sunday, and then, of course, the waterfront. But that is not a difficult spot to end up where Kiffin Simpson is. Very, very fast down into a hard braking zone.
Oh, we appear to have lost a little bit of data there from the leaderboard, and it's refreshed itself. News to me. That is a bit of a new one. It's updated, and nobody expected to see that one. So that has anybody else just been caught completely off guard by that? Not just me?
You don't feel
Lovely.
like you have the angle to the corner. Better just take the runoff area. So the AMR safety crew, they've got him spun back around. And the rookie from the Cayman Islands will continue on.
Yeah, okay, so it looks like race control this year has changed to an INDYCAR leaderboard situation, and they've just updated it, and that's why we're having
so
some
important in
issues.
these cars to make sure when you get on them that the fronts don't lock before the backs and vice versa. If the fronts lock, it just wants to go straight. If the backs lock, it wants to turn the back of the car around. So it's, you got to get that balance perfect.
Now, Davey, the good news is for these teams, while this is just a 10-minute segment for all of the drivers that are in the odd-numbered pit boxes, the good news is in this situation, while they're retrieving Kiffin Simpson and getting him back underway, the clock is stopped, so there's still about 7 minutes remaining in the session.
Yeah, this is new for all of us, Mark, and I see that it did stop it. And so that matter of fact, it just gives everybody the same amount of track time, no matter if you're in the first group or the second group. I don't know if you pull that red out, if they're going to penalize you some time personally for causing the red, but it's good for all the other competitors.
Yeah, based upon what has happened in previous years, I mean, that he may be parked for a bit, and so because that's typically what has happened in the past when you bring out that red, you do get a hold.
Yeah, and right now they're really having a problem getting him going. They had the starter plugged into him. It did not fire up, and I'm wondering if it was a situation where the car maybe didn't just quit going down in there, because I did not see tire smoke, and maybe
that's a great point.
With no power, maybe you don't have that the engine to slow you down getting that corner. And then they couldn't fire it, and they're out there waiting for a safety truck to pull him in. So a little surprised they didn't just take him off and run him through behind all the tire barriers and turn 10 and motor on. But it is what it is, and it could be a situation, like I said, where, they're bringing another starter out now. So maybe the one that they had originally did not work. They're behind the tire barrier and try and fire him up again.
Indy NXT, one session already in the book, Nick Yeoman. We talked about all the new faces and new places in the NTT IndyCar Series, and certainly plenty of new faces in Indy NXT.
Yeah, we saw a couple of them show some speed in this first practice session. Brazilian Kyle Collette ended up third quick. He's a driver that spent the last couple years racing a very competitive FIA Formula 3 over in Europe. And then Michael D'Orlando, who's more of an American product from New York, a rookie driver for Andretti Cape. He was second fastest. The guy at the top, though, Mark, had him cleared by nearly 0.4 of a second, and that is Louis Foster, one of the drivers on the short list that we all expect to contend for the championship. He was lightning quick, dominating the practice session. 21 cars in Indy NXT by Firestone. It's fantastic to see. Some other names to the top. Jamie Chadwick was awful impressive. She's back for year number 2, did a lot of learning, steadily got better each and every week. She ended up 4th fastest. So another practice session on tap for Indy NXT by Firestone tomorrow morning. They'll go qualifying tomorrow as well, and then they'll kick off the season with a 45-lap race around the streets of St. Pete, the warm-up for the NTT IndyCar Series Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, presented by RP Funding, right here on IndyCar Radio on Sunday.
And again, the top 10, but we're on a bit of a hold until they get Kiffin Simpson restarted. You've got Felix Rosenquist, P1, and then Will Power. Romain Grosjean is 3rd quick. Pato Ward is 4th quick. Alex Palou is 5th. Colton Herta is 6th. Scott Dixon 7th. Scott McLaughlin is 8th. 9th quick is VK, and Alexander Rossi is 10th quick. Pato Ward is another one of those Davey Hamilton that I'm sure feels like one got away from him here a year ago after that dust-up and that contact between Romain Grosjean and Scott McLaughlin. The lead fell to Pato Ward. Next to the last lap, he had a mechanical issue, slowed off of that final turn, and that opened the door for Ericsson to get to victory lane last year.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Ericsson was right behind Pato, and actually not right behind it, but when Pato had that little misfire, it was just a small misfire coming off the final corner onto this long straightaway to get the white flag. And if I recall, was the white flag, or maybe one before. But yeah, just enough to let Ericsson get by, and Pato's car took back off again, but a little bit too late. You couldn't get back by Ericsson, and yeah, so he wasn't too happy. And these races are hard to win, so every time you let one slip away, it's just one less on your resume.
And the crazy thing, Mark, is hindsight being 2020, we thought, well, okay, Arrow McLaren, they'll shake it off. They'll find a way to victory lane. Pato Ward's going to be fine. And then, 6 months later, here's Arrow McLaren standing at the end of the season, and none of their drivers ended up with a win. So that's a fascinating team coming into this year.
And they make a huge splash by signing David Malukas, but David Malukas is not in the car this weekend, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a guy who goes mountain biking a lot, Mark, but I'm sure David Malukas won't be either. Broke his wrist, had to have surgery on it, and will miss at least this first race. His status still very much up in the air for this highly anticipated all-star race.
He did say earlier today, it doesn't look like he's going to be available for that either.
Wow, so yeah, that's big. And the guy that gets the call, at least for this St. Pete weekend, made a ton of sense. Callum Ilott, right? Kind of got shuffled out. The Humkos Hollinger as they signed Romain Grosjean. Callum Ilott goes WEC racing and sports cars, but this was a free weekend. It made a ton of sense because Callum's had some good runs here. I know he had a top 5. I'm not sure it was last year or the year before, so he knows this racetrack. Seemed like a pretty smart move for Zach Brown and those guys to reach in, grab Callum, and put him in that 6th car, at least for this first race.
Yeah, 5th place finish 1 year ago for Ilott after finishing 19th the year prior to. So out of this group, the fastest is Will Power, then Grosjean, then Palou, then McLaughlin, VK, Rossi, Ericsson, Kirkwood, Newgarden, Rasmussen, Fittipaldi, and Brown. Those are the guys that are in this group as we speak, with about 4 minutes remaining in this session. And Davey, question. Over the course of the weekend, I'm sure this track is going to rubber up. But as many years as we've been running here, I mean, I know it's a long time between races here, and you get rain and you get heat and et cetera on these St. Petersburg, Florida streets. But is this track pretty well grooved in when these guys arrive, or do they need the whole weekend to get it grooved in by race day?
Yeah, it really it takes pretty much the weekend. I mean, by qualifying time, they have a lot of other divisions racing here, Mark. It gets that rubber down. The track is really good shape by the promoters that put this together, and it's the same every time that we come. But when you get to the surface itself, being these are streets that cars are driving in on every day, a lot of oils and debris on these streets, and not rubbered in, and so it just takes a while. So all day today and majority of the time tomorrow, they'll all be just working on getting these cars figured out, getting this track figured out, and they're going to go faster and faster as we see. Looks like that's Newgarden, or McLaughlin, I'm sorry, hit a baggie, like a baggie that you go shopping and get out of the grocery stores, hooked on one of his mirrors and had to come in and take
I thought it was a Just Married streamer or something, Nick.
Yeah,
do they have Hy-Vee supermarkets down there in Florida? I don't know.
It was stretched out. I couldn't read what grocery it was from, but it was from one of them for sure.
Let's go to Michael Young.
Yeah, sitting in the pit box of Pato O'Ward, the team frantically changing the front and rear dampers, not only changing the actual element itself, the damper, but changing springs as well. And Pato pointing to the front of the car, wanting some adjustments to that as well. They've changed the ride height, so some major swings. And Pato O'Ward's car trying to find just the perfect fit for him in this first practice session of race weekend. But Pato talking to the crew guys and adjusting the bias, I think, on the actual pedals itself. So he's actually working on that in the cockpit of that car, and the crew slowly getting him set to go back out and get back into this practice session. But to put an exclamation mark on David Malukas, I had a chance to talk to David right the beginning of this afternoon, and I said, how's the wrist? He said, I can move my fingers now, and he was able to move the fingers of his left hand. I said, and then to your point, Mark, will you run thermal? He said, no. I said, how about Long Beach? He said, that's the goal right now, is to get back and be back in action for Long Beach.
And Nick Yeoman, yet another visitor to the runoff area.
Yeah, that bright purple machine, the Honda for Petro Fittipaldi, has had an incident down in turn number 10. Doesn't appear to be any damage. The AMR safety crew kind of doing a 3 or 4 point turn to get him pointed in the right direction. But it did, Mark, bring out yet another red flag. So, boy, that first 20 minutes when we had all 27 cars on the track were clean, and then wouldn't you know it, we cut the field in half, and now we're getting red flags. So sometimes you can make plans, and it just doesn't matter.
Well, Davey, you mentioned it a little bit. You talk about that second group now that's waiting. They've been waiting quite a while, so let's face it, after that first 20-minute all-skate session, if they had any improvements or changes they wanted to make to those cars, that second group has had plenty of time to do so, maybe a little too much for their liking.
Yeah, maybe a bit of an advantage for that second group at this point right now, and so it's interesting to see how this all works out and what the teams decide, that if it works or it doesn't work. But that's the first race. I mean, and by the way, it's the first time Pedro's been in a car for a long time. Just seeing the front tires lock up, slide there. What I do think they may need is, I think, the safety truck behind the barrier. The starter must not be working because they're having to bring another safety truck, and so it takes them a long time, takes safety a long time to get the cars out onto that racetrack and get them fired up. So unfortunately, I think if they just had a starter back there behind where everybody's doing the runoff, it'd make it much quicker.
Every now and then, Nick Yeoman, a move is announced in the offseason that is one of those wows, and I think this announcement to add Petro Fittipaldi to this race team was one of those announcements.
Yeah, I mean, because everybody wondered once, they decided to move on from Jack Harvey, who was going to get that ride, and that one kind of came out of left field for Petro Fittipaldi. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, he had made some starts, ran an Indy 500 a couple years ago, but it didn't seem like IndyCar was necessarily going to be in the plans for him, as he was kind of a reserve driver over in Formula One and looking for some opportunities there. And then all of a sudden, Bobby Rahal reaches into the Legacy Bowl, so to speak, to pull out a name that we're all very, very familiar with, the grandson of course, Indianapolis 500 champion, F1 world champion Emerson Fittipaldi. So very, very cool to see Pietro back with us. Really, talented young driver. Spent a lot of time in America. He did some stock car racing as well. He's a guy who, for as long as he's been racing, has just been trying to get his butt in a seat of no matter what it is. So we're a great opportunity for him to drive and hopefully help that Rahal Letterman Lanigan team continue to push forward to where they want to be. Obviously, they've found something in Christian Lundgaard, right? Winning that race at Toronto, he looks so incredibly strong. I think the hope is that Graham and Pietro can add to that mix and help that team get back on some more solid footing.
So now, Davey, the next group in the next set of pit boxes gets to take their 10-minute session now as the clock expired on that first group. And Padua Ward is among those. Colton Hurtis, Scott Dixon, Christian Lundgaard, Linus Lundqvist, Santino Ferrucci, Stingray Robb, Jack Harvey. Davey, all getting ready to turn laps.
They're all on track right now as to take a turn. The track's going to be a little bit better for these drivers. We see one of them already shoot off down in turn one. They spin it around just fine, get it going again. Looks like that is who is that? That is Kirkwood, actually. Kyle Kirkwood off again down there in turn one. Gets spun around, continues on, and back in pit lane right now. But, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how much better the track gets. Rosenquist, he finds P1 in that Shank car. They have an alliance with Andretti, had for a while. Rosenquist, out of McLaren, he's hungry. He wants to do good as well. And same with Grosjean. They find themselves first and third right now with power in between them.
There's no question, Davey, that over the past few years with the teams that he has run with, we have certainly, and I know no one puts more pressure on a driver than they do themselves, but let's face it, I think the expectation level for success for Felix Rosenquist has been a lot higher over the past 4 or 5 years, and I really feel like that he took the off season to kind of reset, if you will, and I think he goes into the season with a ton of optimism with this race team.
I totally agree, and it's funny how we talked about Grosjean too. Both of them were brought up. As you just mentioned, by the fourth race of the season, we thought, well, just a teeny tiny bit of luck. He's leading this championship. He is fast. He's good. He's confident. But it just kind of, the wheels flew off, and it just never got it going. So, and kind of same with Rosenquist. He had things so under control, including the Indy 500, by the way. And then right at the end, small mistakes cost him from pulling off those wins, or just circumstances, not just
maybe of changing race teams as Felix Rosenquist continues P1, by the way. Davey, from changing race teams, and I'm sure you've been in both situations, when you made the deal, you thought it was the right time and the right move. It didn't take long to figure out that maybe it wasn't, but how about those times when you weren't sure about it, and then within a couple of races you knew you'd made the right move?
Yeah, well, I've been on both sides of it, and I think you look down through a lot of drivers, and, we just brought up Dan Weldon. He was in that situation, going from Andretti to Ganassi to Panther, then all of a sudden without a ride completely. And it was kind of his choice to move on out of all those rides. And so sometimes you make the right ones, sometimes you don't, and that's back to, we talked Jack Harvey, of making a move out of one car and going to the next. And sometimes you don't have the opportunity or the chance to make that decision, but when you do, man, it's sometimes pretty difficult.
I know Mike Cole, Nick Yeoman, has always said that the windshield is large and the rear view mirror is small for a reason, but it would be interesting to know if you could ever set the powers that be down with the folks at Meyer Shank and Jack Harvey and say, hey, do you think maybe all of this could have or should have been done a little differently? Do you think the results would have been different?
Boy, it seemed like when they put together a two-car effort of Simon Pagenaud and Helio Castroneves that everything was going to be great, right? Yeah. They moved on from Jack Harvey, and, obviously Helio Castroneves got an Indy 500 win, but that has been a team, Mark, that over the past couple of years on most race weekends outside of Indianapolis, they haven't been very competitive, and I think Meyer Shank's kind of had to look at it and say, well, maybe it's not a driver thing. We gotta start looking into making some changes and shoring up the engineering. So, hindsight is always 20/20, but that's a team that certainly needs a kick in the pants, and it's interesting to see what they'll do this year. Felix Rosenquist looking pretty strong in this first practice session, and the opposite end of the spectrum, they've got Tom Blomqvist, who's currently the slowest of the 27th. So that's an interesting team to watch.
Davey Hamilton, this race, as we said, under the IRL and IndyCar banner dates back to 2005. It was a kart race in 2003. I believe 7 times there's a driver, one of the greats of all time, that has been on the podium but never been on the top step. I'm talking about Scott Dixon. Hard to believe.
Yeah. And that blows your mind. And Scott, he's been around so long and has done so many things and has so many records. We see Ferrucci have a little problem when turn 4 keeps it going. But that one, because I know for a fact he's been in contention to win this race several times that I can remember, just hasn't went his way. And that's not Scott Dixon or Ganassi like. Seems like they pretty much win everywhere, and especially when they've had this many attempts at it. So Scott, I think he's going to be as competitive as ever. I think that he's been here a long time. He's one of the elder drivers, and how long is he going to do this? We don't know. But right now, I think he's at top of his game still. I think he can win races. I think he can win championships, and he for sure could win this race on Sunday.
Well, he seemingly started winning races in the NTT IndyCar Series when he was 11 years old, so he's still fairly young. But I think 18 or 19 years old, Davey, he started winning races and championships in this series, and there's no question that you can talk about all the young guns that you want, but he looked no further than the season finale last year for Scott Dixon to remind even the youngest of guns that he can still get it done.
He can still get it done. What a true champion, and what a great guy and great family. It's always fun to have him in the series. When he does decide to retire, it's not that much fun for any of us because we always enjoyed being around him and him being leader of this sport. But I am surprised when you bring it up that he hasn't pulled this win off. But he's hungry. He can get it done. And right now he sits in P7. There's always a little left for Scott Dixon when it comes to qualifying.
Well, Nick Yeoman, nobody outruns Father Time. Scott Dixon won't either, but you look at what Chip Ganassi has done over the past couple of years and how they were able to get things sorted out with Alex Palou, and you look at Armstrong and now Lundqvist. I mean, let's face it, Chip is preparing for life after Scott Dixon with his race team.
He's always a couple moves ahead of everybody, right? I mean, you got to start thinking to the future. Scott Dixon, nobody's kicking him out the door yet. He's still very competitive. Could win this championship, and I don't think anybody would be surprised. But discovered, and I don't want to say discovered, but he kind of poached Alex Palou when maybe most thought that he wasn't quite ready to start winning races and championships. Proved to look pretty smart in that respect, so he's got now a 2-time champion that is in his prime. And then, as you mentioned, reached out and found a guy in Linus Lundqvist, who I think we're all very, very high on. He gets an opportunity now for the first time to run full-time. Marcus Armstrong is a guy who has shown some potential, and then obviously Kiffin Simpson, very, very young, that's going to get his feet wet. But yeah, up and down that Ganassi team, it's a team that is poised to have a guy that you got a legacy driver that you can sell sponsorships to on Scott Dixon. You got one that's in his prime at the top of his game in Alex Palou, and then you've got a couple poised for the future. That's exactly what I think all these teams would be looking for.
Everybody locked in at 61, or at least the top 16 were. Don't look now, Davey Hamilton and Colton Herta, a guy who wanted to put the misery of last year behind him in a hurry and get off to a great start. He is the first one in that 1 minute 994 range. Pretty good lap for Colton Herta.
That's right. It's something with Colton. I think this year is a kind of not a rebuild year. We know how good the kid is. I mean, he's just such an outstanding driver, but just didn't have things go his way. He made a few mistakes. Car wasn't to his liking, I think, a lot of the times. He's still with that Andretti team. They have confidence in him. He knows how to get it done. I really expect big things out of Colton Herta this year. Just didn't seem to have it together. We even thought, man, what happened to Colton? But it wasn't any one thing. It was just multiple things. And I think they've refocused, and he's going to be on top, I think, a lot this year, and he's doing it right now in this first practice.
Well, we mentioned the changes at Shank Racing, Michael Young, and among them, the news that Mike Shank said that he is stepping away from calling race strategy this season, but he's still very involved, obviously, in that race team.
Well, he's still making sure that he's making good use of the race weekend as we see Santino Ferrucci go off. He's back on course, but Michael Shank now joins us, stepping away from race strategy. George Klotz now taking over the 60 car. Was that a tough call for you?
Yeah, it's a tough car for me, but it's time for me to move on to other things, let George and the guys take over. It'll be a slow process, but I still super competitive and love being on the stand, so that won't go away quite yet. We'll see where this leads, but we're starting here and a little assistance, and then maybe eventually with the partners and sponsors.
Some inner lookings. Why then did you decide now was the time?
We have so many great partners at Shank Racing now. There's so many good people, and they're really engaging with us, and we need to make sure we take care of them first and foremost. So I need to do a better job of that and slowly transition off this and focus on that side of it for us. So that'll be our focus going forward.
Felix Rosenqvist, Tom Blomqvist, both now in the cockpit of your two machines, and Felix the top of timing and scoring right now, doing fantastic. How has this transition been for you from Jack Harvey to Pagenaud and Castro Neves now to a veteran and a guy brand new to IndyCar?
Well, I mean, we had a tough year last year overall, so we'll have to see where this goes, but I'm pretty positive. We got a heck of an experienced guy with Felix. He got a ton of speed. He's the leader on this team now, and we want to see what he can do with that role, knowing he's got a job, he's got a home. We love him. He's going to make some mistakes here and there on both sides, but let's get some fast times up there, which he's doing so far.
I know this is a long-term thing, but will this team ever grow to 3 cars, or are you comfortable with 2 right now?
We need to get 2 right. Let's get 2 right, and then we'll do 3 at Indy with Elio, which I'm super proud of, but let's get 2 right consistently, and then we'll talk about full-time 3 later.
We'll let you get back on the place you really enjoy being, back on the stand. That's Michael Shank, of course, team owner of Meyer Shank Racing.
And again, another one of those guys that offers us tremendous access and insight. And Davey, I think he hit the nail on the head, and I think he sounds like the jaw is locked collectively. Let's get 2 right before we talk about expanding full-time to 3.
One thing with Mike, he's been a guy from the start, Mark, that really did this properly. When he came into IndyCar, he did some races, just learned about it. Then he came in with Jack Harvey, just came in, okay, we're gonna do full time now, and then we got a full time program together. They win the Indy 500 with Elio. Things started expanding, and he just one step at a time, and I really appreciate the way he does it. It's hard not to just jump in and do, try to jump right to the top, but he's done it very methodically. I think if you're a team owner that wants to come to the series, you look at what he's done and how he's gone about it. It's been pretty good. Even though they had a down year last year, as he said, they're going to get fired back up again. You got to remember he has that Andretti Technologies or Andretti Global. I think it is Andretti Technologies partnership, not the global part, but the technology side of Andretti, helping them out. Also, another one to look at this year that's new, Mark, is AJ Foyt Racing. They have an alliance with Roger Penske and the Penske organization. We'll see how that helps. I don't know how the alliance works exactly. I don't know if it's technical on the cars, if it's commercial. I'm not sure exactly how it works. I hear it's technical, but that could help that Foyt team out as well, find some speed.
Yeah, we'll see the benefits of that now that they have a full season's worth of it, as it started about 3/4 of the way through last season. That next group is headed out on the track right now. Will Power, Grosjean, and others right now. They're all looking up at Colton Herta, Rosenqvist, and Armstrong, who were the fastest 3. And again, that time is 60.9937 by Colton Herta. And again, earlier today, drivers were made available. Our Michael Young was there and caught up with Christian Lundgaard.
With Christian Lundgaard, Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. We were just speaking before we started the interview. It's been a long 7 months. How'd you bide your time in that 7 months?
Bored a lot. Did some virtual racing. Did some more training, bored some more. It's just been a lot of boredom, really. It's there's been very limited things as a driver you can help the team with doing this off season. Obviously, there's been a lot of things changing within IndyCar and things that that still is unclear, really. I think that the whole testing conversation is one thing, but ultimately we're all here now, so there's nothing that we can do about it. It's about going out there and perform whenever we need to.
You did well in the test in Sebring, but the difference not having the hybrid in, the change in weight, just the balance of the car, did it change at all?
Not big enough of a change to really notice. I think the Sebring test, you don't really know what the weight people were really running with, because when we did the Sebring test, the weight wasn't really announced, so nobody knew what weight to run in the car. But I do think that we were competitive. The pace was there, so we need to show that when it's a race weekend. But I am looking forward to see the hybrid system whenever it gets here. Personally, I don't hope it gets here in the middle of the season, because in the end then you're going to split this championship into two, and I don't think that's fair for anybody, especially not for the teams that haven't tested.
Ultimately, has the team, you won't really know till we get out there, but do you think you turned the corner? Do you think the team is on the right track?
Absolutely, but I think it comes down to the mentality that we're not seeing this as a first race. We're seeing this as a continuation of last year. This is round 18 for us. We have unfinished business from the last race last year, but obviously we're here to redeem ourselves from that, but also to continue on that path, because I do feel like we get stronger as the season goes on. So we, as a team, the biggest change that we can make is start where we finished, and we haven't been able to do that the past 2 years.
Breakout win in Toronto, facial hair again this year. We're gonna try that.
No mustache, no stupid deals, no bets. But I think it was fun and it worked out. Obviously there was no guarantee of winning a race last year. I could potentially still have it, so imagine if I still had it going into Laguna and then that happened, then it would have been a bittersweet feeling. But we are competitive. We're competitive people. We're a united organization, and we have a lot of positive energy within all of us.
Wish you all the best this season and this weekend here in St. Pete.
Thank you.
That's Christian Lundgaard.
Of those turning laps, Alex Palou is 10th quick. Scott McLaughlin is 12th quick. Rossi, Ericsson, 16th, 17th. Kirkwood, Newgarden, 19th, 20th. 22nd, Rasmussen. 24th, Simpson. 25th, Blomqvist. 26th, Fittipaldi. 27th, Brown. Scott McLaughlin, Davey, just went to P1. He is at 69.106, 60.9106. He leapfrogs over Colton Herta.
Yeah, he sure does, and we always remember his first win was right here, and we remember the dismount he had once he got out of the car. We'll never forget that. That was a highlight reel when he jumped off that car and fell and rolled around on the ground. So that was kind of his signature jump off the car, but this was his first win. He wants to get it again. Obviously, he loves this racetrack. He's fast right off the bat. As he said, Herta, another, the guys that are up front are expected to be at there. But I'll have to say this one. How about VK? We know how good of a driver he is. He's won race. Oh, by the way, look where he goes. P1 in that Ed Carpenter car.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a year for Rinus VK. I really do, and I think he's a guy you might want to keep an eye on when we get to the month of May for sure. He's usually pretty good there, as is Ed Carpenter Racing. But back to Scott McLaughlin and his celebration at Victory Lane here a couple of years ago. Curious, Davey, after you won a race in a modified at Phoenix, did you ever think about drinking champagne out of your shoe?
No, I never thought about that. I never come across that. There was some drinking involved, but there wasn't champagne out of a shoe, and so that was definitely new.
Rinus VK, as Davey told you, goes to P1 at 60.8848. McLaughlin second. Herta third. Rosenqvist is currently fourth and Armstrong fifth. Now, some of those guys aren't out turning laps. Kirkwood's out there, along with Will Power, Grosjean, Palou, Ericsson, Newgarden, and Simpson. And Nick Yeoman, Will Power, one of those guys, obviously. A tough year for Will with the issues that his wife had with her health. Happy to report that for all intents and purposes, everybody's doing well. And now Will can get back to the task at hand. I know to the best of his ability, he focused on the task at hand, but as dedicated and committed and focused as all these drivers are. Family comes first for all of them, and now Will Power's ready to get back to being the Will Power of old.
I'm sure Will, probably can't pick and find spots on the schedule of where maybe he was preoccupied and where maybe his performance lacked. Because it's impossible to tell, right? But it's also impossible not to look at what that family went through with the concerns of his wife's health and not wonder if that certainly weighed on Will quite heavily. So yeah, I mean it's a reset to the new season and obviously everything good at home and obviously he can now focus forward on getting back to doing Will Power things, which you forget about last year and the year before that, Mark. We're talking about a very consistent Will Power championship campaign, which was never always the Will Power story. What we're used to seeing, though, Mark, is him at the top of timing and scoring, and right on cue, almost as if you set that one on the tee for me. Will has gone P1 at a minute flat, 0.0840. So that Verizon Chevrolet, always fast on the streets of St. Pete. He's got, 9 poles here, I think it is?
Yep.
He's going to be a threat to get number 10 tomorrow.
And Davey, in a quest to go back-to-back in terms of the Manufacturers' Championship, Chevrolet currently runs 1, 2, 3 here on the streets of St. Petersburg.
Yeah, looking strong. Just noticed that, too, as you mentioned. But 1, 2, 3 right now, and I'm still impressed with VK, new sponsor, AskROI.com. So that's a new one. I see on Ed's other car, INDYCAR, another new sponsor. So good for Ed, getting a couple new sponsors on those cars, and looks like they're ready to rock and roll. But Power, no surprise that he's up there either, and I agree with Nick. I mean, he didn't mention it a lot, but with Liz, his wife, going through some health issues last year, when you care for somebody that much and know that their health is bad, it takes away from the racetrack, I promise you. So looks like hopefully he can focus. Liz is doing good, and he's going to get back to the Will we know, and that is continuing to set a record pace amount of poles and winning races and championships.
Nick Yeoman introduces, if you will, to a couple of these rookies that we mentioned earlier. The driver of the number 20, Christian Rasmussen, comes from Indy NXT, along with Kiffin Simpson, who's driving for Ganassi Racing this year.
Yeah, both of those drivers competed in a full season last year in Indy NXT by Firestone, and Rasmussen, the more impressive of the two, winning 5 races en route to the championship, really caught fire in the second half of the season. We were kind of waiting all last year of, okay, who's going to, step out and separate themselves from the pack? Well, that was Christian Rasmussen, as the driver went out and won 4 of the last 7 races and really cleaned up that championship very nicely at the end of the year. So he gets an opportunity to now jump behind the wheel of a car for Ed Carpenter Racing. He'll share that number 20 car. Ed will drive on the ovals. And then for Kiffin Simpson, a young man from the Cayman Islands who spent the last couple years in Indy NXT by Firestone. A lot of one-lap pure pace, but never found his way to victory lane. This is very much a project for Chip Ganassi Racing. He comes with a significant amount of funding. I think that certainly needs to be pointed out, but did show at times that he has the pace. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, Mark, was awful impressive in testing down at Sebring, but very much a project that I don't think we'll see the best of Kiffin Simpson this year. 2, 3, 4 years from now, let's see where he's at. But these are both drivers that have a lot of experience, and most importantly, Mark, in terms of starting this season, got a ton of laps here at St. Pete because they've spent time in what we used to call the road to Indy.
11 seconds remaining for this group. Power, VK, McLaughlin, Grosjean, Herta, Pillow, Rosenquist, Newgarden, Armstrong, and Rossi, the top 10. Again, the best time so far, that of Will Power at a minute 8:4:09. So Davey Hamilton off the top. For those that weren't joining us, we do want to make mention of a couple of significant changes. For all intents and purposes, the bumps in that troublesome turn 3 are gone, and they have reduced the depth of the tire barrier just a little bit in turn number 4, and they've given the drivers a little more room to that area of the racetrack.
Yeah, they sure have. And that area in turn 3, that's so important on the starts and restarts. We see a lot of incidents happen down there. As I say, we had hurt cars and hurt feelings a lot of times in that area, but it's smooth now. There's not a lot of grip yet because it's new asphalt, but as these cars run, they'll start getting the rubber down, getting a little more grip through there, getting a little more confidence. And then, turn 4, where we've seen some crazy action as well. They moved that tire barrier at the exit of that corner back just a little bit. to where if you do make a mistake, there's a little more forgiveness there, that you maybe can get through there without hitting that tire barrier.
As Michael Young waits for debriefs, the thoughts and impressions I'm interested in most, Michael Young, not necessarily just from drivers, but maybe some team principals, to see how they like this new practice format. Do they like it? Do they hope it sticks? Because, again, this is just, they're just on a trial period doing this today with a 20-minute all-skate and then rotating between 10-minute sessions based upon your pit box assignment. Will Power's probably going to say he likes it because he's P1, and then VK, McLaughlin, Grosjean, Herta, Palou through 6th, Rosenquist 7th, Newgarden 8th, Armstrong 9th, Rossi 10th, Kirkwood, Award, Ericsson, Lundquist through 14th, and Augustin Canapino 15th. Nick?
Yeah, outside of Augustin Canapino, we see Linus Lundquist, Scott Dixon. He ends up 16th fastest. Christian Rasmussen was 17th. Jack Harvey, 18th fastest, as he's now jumping behind the wheel of a car for Dale Coyne Racing. 19th was Christian Lundgaard. Callum Ilott was 20th. Kiffin Simpson 21st. Santino Ferrucci 22nd. Tom Blomqvist 23rd. Graham Rahal 24th. 25th Christian Fittipaldi. 26th Stingray Robb. And 27th Christian Brown. So all these teams, Mark, have gotten their first round of split practice sessions. Now we kind of re-rack it.
Right.
We keep the same distinction of even and odd pit boxes, and now all these teams going to get 10 more additional practice minutes split up in 2 groups. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's different. I saw in the first 20 minutes some near misses down in turn number 9 where things got stacked up, which is what this new system is going to try to alleviate. And now we'll see that these drivers got a good feeling for these race cars. Maybe we see the alternate green tires slapped on these race cars. And with a little more open track, we might start to see some qualifying cars.
And we have a busy day tomorrow. We start bright and early at 8:25 Eastern time with Indy NXT practice session number 2. And then the NTT INDYCAR series will roll off at 9:35. Then at 1:05 tomorrow afternoon, we'll go qualifying. And then we'll go with the Indy NXT series, we should say. And then NTT INDYCAR series qualifying. The Firestone Fast 6 is at 2 o'clock Eastern on Saturday. And then Dick Yeoman looking forward to Sunday after the warm-up session at 9:10. The first race of the season for the Indy NXT series.
Yeah, and it's exciting. If you haven't heard, got 21 cars in Indy NXT, Mark. At least they're not all full season efforts. There's a couple of them that are still searching for funding, but for the most part, I think we're going to be looking at the very least 18 or 19 full season rides. So very excited to see that championship kick off on Sunday morning, bright and early in St. Pete.
And join us for pre-race festivities at 11:30 for the race number 1 of the 2024 NTT IndyCar Series campaign, the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, presented by RP Funding. To Michael Young.
Yeah, getting ready to grab some couple of drivers here, and everybody kind of boogied out once their session was done. We currently have some cars on track. So, Mark, we're going to catch up, but there was a lot of changes. As I said, this was an interesting time to see this new format put into motion that I think a lot of the drivers, at least the ones I spoke to before we went into this practice session today, were really excited for it, because even the drivers were frustrated once the green came out that they would sit in the car for 20, 30 minutes at a time before even turning a lap after their installation lap. So for them to actually be able to get out there and turn some laps, I think is a win for everybody, especially for these fans here in the streets of St. Petersburg. But as I said, we'll catch up with drivers here momentarily and see if I could actually grab a word with Alexander Rossi. He's actually doing a debrief right now. But we'll grab a driver for you before it's all said and done, Mark.
Interesting to note, Davey, some of the frustration they voiced over the 20 or 30 minutes of inactivity. That's exactly what we saw the last year in these practice sessions. A lot of them would take that wait and see approach, except for those, of course, that had the extra set because they were rookies or first-timers.
Yeah, that's right. It's never perfect for everybody, right? But this does seem to work, I think. I think what it does is it gives that driver time to think about what they're doing. You're not rushing changes of the car. It gives the engineers and the team a little time to relax and get the car ready for the next group. So I'm going to assume that they're going to like it. I kind of like the idea. It seems like there's more cars on track like all the time now, as you just mentioned. And we've seen another one, Ilott. He wants a good performance here filling in right now. Obviously, in that McLaren car, he went off course, but he finds himself in that 20th spot right now.
Let's hear from Michael Young.
Yeah, with Kyle Kirkwood. So what say you about this new practice format? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I mean, we remembered why we thought about splitting it after that first 20 minutes, because it's just absolute chaos, just blocking people, messing up people's laps. You're getting your own lap messed up. It's a short lap around here, right? And we're trying to put 27 cars on. Everyone wants a bigger gap than what is possible of getting when you have 27 cars on track at once. So I like it. Decent session for us. We're really quick. We have a little bit of braking gremlins that we can sort out, but overall, like cornering speed and just overall balance of the car feels really, really good. So hopefully this 27 AutoNation Honda is going to be up front here in this next session.
How much tweaking do you feel like you need to do before it's all said and done?
Not much. I think we got a really, really good handle on it. I think it's as simple as changing something on the brakes. It's just a piece of the product that sometimes that happens with new brakes. So we'll change that, I assume, and be good to go here in practice 2 tomorrow morning.
How's the addition of Marcus Ericsson been thus far? What does he bring to this team?
I mean, he's been an amazing addition. I've said it a million times. I mean, as soon as he stepped in, we've hit it off right away. Him, Colton, and I think you couldn't ask for a better 3 drivers on a team together, because we all work together. We all like the same thing. We understand what the goal is, right? It's go win races, win championships, and it is a team between us 3. You know, it's not just the 26, 27, 28 car. It's Andretti Global here with us 3 drivers.
Lastly, you were at the premiere of the Lionheart last night, and I was talking with someone, and they said, you know, Kyle was only 10 years old when Dan was a racer, and for you to see the film, what did you take away from it?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how much safety has evolved here in IndyCar in the past 13 years since a lot of that film was 2011, right, or prior to that. And it's incredible to see what they've done with this new era car and how safe everything is. And it was a great film. If you get a chance to go watch it, I think it's airing next week, HBO. That's old takes off right here. So yeah, if you get a chance to go watch it, go watch it. It tells a lot of I won't spoil it for you. I'll let you guys make your own interpretation of it, but it's a great film. You got to see it. I think it's coming out next week.
Great job today. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
It's Kyle Kirkwood, driver number 27 for Andretti Global.
Talking about Marcus Ericsson, Davey, he was very happy with Ganassi Racing. The reality of it was he was being paid by his sponsor, Husky Chocolate, at the time. That was going to go away, and he wanted that to be picked up by the race team. Chip obviously had a lot on his plate last year, and unfortunately, by the time the two sides got to sit out at the table to discuss that very proposition, Marcus had already moved on, decided to move to Andretti Global.
Yeah, you know, and it was, Chip loves Ericsson. I mean, I know that they won 500 together. He ran second last year. He's done a good job. But I think the timing of it just wasn't right for Chip, because he needed to, like you said, the Husky Chocolates was part of Ericsson's deal. That was going away. So Chip needs to replace that. I mean, these cars are very expensive to drive. I think that just the timing wasn't right, and Ericsson had to make a move.
So Colton Herta currently in this group, although Felix Rosenqvist has gone to P1. Armstrong now has jumped over Will Power as well. Herta still out turning laps. Dixon, Lundgaard, and Award. Lundqvist, Canapino, Ferrucci, Harvey, Ray Hall, and Robb. Nick Yeoman, speaking of Santino Ferrucci.
Yeah, looks like he's found the runoff area down in turn number 10. We're seeing a replay. Had that car all the way up against the outside retaining wall to driver's right. Smoked the left front tire. And again, did the smart thing. If you carry too much speed in that corner and you're guessing if you're going to make it, oftentimes you'll end up in the tire barriers. So Santino abruptly kind of jerked the steering wheel to the right and used that runoff area. That's what it's there for. But that is going to bring out another red flag, Mark. The AMR safety crew now got the quick jack underneath that car. They're going to pick the rear end up off the ground and point Santino back in the right direction so he can continue on here in practice. Actually, looks like they might just be using that opening in the wall to get him pointed in the right direction. I thought they might take him off the racetrack completely, but looks like they will refire him and get that Sexton Properties Chevrolet back to pit lane for A.J. Foyt's team.
Davey once drove for them, and of course, more or less a part of the family for a number of years now. You're very close to that race team, and I know they made some engineering changes as well during the offseason, and I'm sure Larry, A.J., everybody very, very happy to have Santino Ferrucci back in the fold.
Yeah, they are. You know, I mean, a lot of change have gone on. Crews, you know, some guys left. They have new guys in. They've been working really hard internally to have the right package together. I'm excited to see how this Penske alliance works out. I think they need a little help on that side. And you know, they have the parts. They have the pieces. They have the knowledge. It's just getting it all put together. And hopefully that's going to happen this year.
Typically, Davey, what is it about an alliance? I mean, how much ideally as a race team would you expect someone to share? Or is it a situation where they share everything?
Well, you know, alliances are different things. There's commercial, there's technical, like the car. And the only one that I've been involved with, I have to say, was when I was with Harding Racing, with Colton, and we had the alliance with the Andretti Autosport, or Andretti Technologies. And I'll be honest with you, they gave us engineers, DAG guys. I guess the good side is they gave us their people, and we ran good and won races. The downside is they keep their information. So once you don't have that alliance, you lose everything that you had there. But when you have it, they were full bore. They were committed to it. They like I said, gave us their own employees, had great engineering, great DAG guys, and you know, when it came to debriefs, our drivers were welcome to go over to the Andretti camp and go through debrief with them. And so it was a true technical alliance.
My understanding is that the alliance is very much on the engineering side, that there are some guys on that AJ Foyt pit box who have been Penske employees for the last couple of years. So that is very much a technical alliance. And I think Davey's right. That's an organization, Mark, that certainly needs a little help on some of the road and street circuits. You know where they don't need very much help right now? That's the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, because Santino darn near won the thing. So now, all of a sudden, you add in a Penske engineering alliance, where they, of course, won the 500 last year with Joseph Newgarden. And sure, we're going to be watching how they get better at St. Pete and Long Beach and Thermal. But I'm really interested to see what that can do of maybe pushing Santino even over the top in the Indianapolis 500, because he is going to be a threat to win that race.
Stop the clock momentarily to retrieve that car from the runoff area, and they dispatched him back to pit road, and he is now out of that car. So his session, for all intents and purposes, is over, and he is currently 20th quick. Felix Rosenqvist continues to pedal it around at a pretty good clip at a minute 3:3.90. Marcus Armstrong second quick, then Power, then VK, then McLaughlin, and Grosjean. It was a good session for Romain Grosjean. He's obviously, no matter the car, no matter the team, very comfortable on these streets. And again, Davey, as we maybe we touched upon it earlier, we talked about drivers that want to put last year behind them and move forward. Happy to see Colton Herta with a top 10 run here in this first practice session today.
Yeah, that's right. That's another one that just had a difficult year last year. And you're right. He came out looking strong. He's still strong in that P7 position right now. You know, the confidence is high in him right now. So we talked about Rosenqvist is one of them, P1 right now. There's a lot of drivers. Even Armstrong, he had a pretty good year last year, to be honest with you, but didn't find himself winning like he wants to. And then they're 1 and 2 right now.
Michael Young.
Yeah, with Ritas VK, good session for you. Big smile on the face. Walk us through your day thus far.
Yeah, it was a good session. Different format this time, but it was nice. It's nice to be back after such a long off season. I think also for all the fans, everyone, it's great to finally be here. And I mean, P2 are my group in the session. I think now P4 at this point is so. I'm really happy. Car felt good. Still think we have some time left on the table, but. No, it's a good start. It'll make me sleep well tonight and have a good rest for tomorrow, that's for sure.
Always good to come into a change with a practice session and have the success you had. What did you think of the change?
Yeah, it's definitely, this whole different practice one. It got us on the good side in the last part when we were on the greens. We had time to change the car during those 10 minutes and make pretty big changes, but no, it felt good. I feel like Team Chevy really upped their game, and of course Carpenter Racing did a great job giving me a car that's comfortably fast.
How about the new teammate Christian Rasmussen? What do you think of him, and how has your rapport been with him thus far?
Yeah, I think he's a great guy. It's great to have him with me, joining this team. Finally, a driver that's my age in the team, so that's fun.
Wow. You're kind of the older guy now because you've been there for a little while, right?
I know, but he's still older. But this is my 5th year in the series, so I'm really trying to help him as much as possible, make him get familiar with as much possible as soon as possible. But I'll hear from him later. But I mean, he's had a clean session so far, I think. So good for him.
Good rest tonight. Well done today.
Thank you.
It's Rinus VeeKay, guys.
Nick, I think that's what they call passive-aggressive, baby.
Okay, now hold on. Christian Rasmussen's I looked it up. He's only got him by about 4 months. So, let's pump the brakes. But no, Rinus, it's crazy. Rinus VeeKay is 23 years old. Yeah, it's 3 or 4 months. That's it. But Rinus has been in the sport for now a long time, but he's still only 23 years old, so still a lot of potential. And that's a cool pairing, Mark, to see.
Yeah, I think so. And Davey, you and Ed been friends for a long, long time, and nobody more frustrated by the lack of results last year than Ed Carpenter. And they, too, made their share of changes in the offseason, and I think they're looking for a strong season out of that race team this year, especially with Rinus VeeKay.
Yeah, he puts a lot of work into that team, and he still wants to be a driver. He's choosing to drive the oval still. It's good, I was teammates. I drove for them, and knowing them from sprint car days. So that family and that team's done a lot for me, and I want to see success. Ed to get there. He's had it before. He knows how to do it. He's got good drivers, I think, under the banner right now, and they're focused.
Schedule one more time for Saturday, by the way, 8:25 Eastern, Saturday morning. It's Indy NXT practice session number 2, and then the NTT IndyCar Series rolls off at 9:35 Eastern. Then a bit of a break at 1:05 Eastern. We'll have Indy NXT qualifying, and then IndyCar qualifying at 2 p.m. So, Davey, what's the debrief like for these teams and these drivers now that they've had this one session under their belt?
Well, it's going to be a busy one because it's the first real practice, first race of the season, the first practice that really counts, and they're going to see where they are as a team, as individual drivers. Obviously, the guy on top, Rosenquist, he's number 1, but his teammate's number 27. No, he moved up a little bit, actually. He's 25th. So there's going to be a lot of sharing of information, teams like that, but the ones up top, they're going to study hard. I think this is a very important race weekend. It's the first of many, but they want to get it right out of the box.
I'll give you the top 10 one more time before we go. Felix Rosenquist sets a top of timing and scoring. Pato O'Ward is second quick. Marcus Armstrong is third. Will Power fourth. Rinus VeeKay is fifth. Scott McLaughlin is sixth. Romain Grosjean seventh. Colton Herta eighth. Alex Palou is ninth. And Callum Ilott is 10th fastest after practice session number 1. No more offseason. We are ready to get after it here on the streets of St. Petersburg this weekend. The director of IndyCar Radio and Master Control Operations today, courtesy of Chris Pollock. Happy belated birthday to our chief engineer, Rick Evans, celebrating a birthday yesterday. Poor guy's got to celebrate a birthday in the Sunshine State of Florida. Sorry about that, Rick. For Nick Yeoman, Michael Young, this is Mark James for our driver analyst, Davey Hamilton. So long for now for the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, presented by RP Funding.